But no, Nick, give me a little bit of a background on you, like where you're from, how let's start from the beginning, growing up out here.
Okay, so I grew up in Dyer, Nevada. We moved here when I was 5. We moved down from Oregon. My grandpa come down here, seen some opportunity. We had some things kind of go south with the ranch in Oregon, something with the interest rates. I don't really know. And they ended up losing it to the bank. So, like my memories of Oregon, like super modest. Like I remember when I was a kid, like if I got peanut butter on a spoon, like that was like our treat, right? I remember that, but it was really cool because like my mom was awesome. And I had no idea that we were like, my dad drove a dump truck on a reservation when I was a kid, right? And anyway, my grandpa seen some opportunity, came down here. They did farming up there and ranching. And so they rolled down here. And when we first moved to the valley, my dad was just a hand working on a ranch. And then they threw a little lease ground together, bought some places, and we kind of, been building it the last 35 years into what we have now. So I've been a part of that, which has been like super rad because I seen what it takes to like build from essentially nothing with like really good relationships with people and hard work and like determination. Like I seen what that is, right? I lived it as a kid. So like that was really cool. So like for me growing up out here, doing all that, working on the ranch, working on the farm, like it was when I decided to kind of do this horse deal, it just, like I knew how to like really dive in and try to be as good as I could, right?
Yeah.
Try to be the best.
Your first kind of job is working on a ranch, right? Which that's a pretty wide variety of tasks, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
What's kind of your first job or like, and how does it like apply to today's lessons? Like, when you're just really starting to work, like figure that out. Is there any like lessons you kind of like that still kind of apply like that? Like, I know you're saying you kind of got to witness it, right? But as far as like when you get to start putting the work in, is there things like that from like your early years that you're like, man, it still kind of shows through today, or lessons you've kind of learned watching that?
Oh, for sure. Like I remember when I was growing up, like we'd have a spring break from school or something, and my friends would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go do this for spring break. I'm gonna go do that," and my dad would be like, "No, we're putting up a pivot that day, or like that week."
Yeah, this is spring break.
This is spring break, right? Like we need to get this ranch going, and there was a lot of wheel lines here then, and like he would kind of time it so that pivot would show up, so all of my brother, my sister, and all of us could like help put that pivot up because it takes about a week to put a pivot up. And so like that was spring break and I hated it. Like I hated it. Like I just felt like at the time I felt like I was, I just worked all the time and I didn't see the value in it then, where everything here was like family, work, then if we had time, fun, right? The priorities were like in that order. It wasn't fun after work. Like it was like we set everything up to do our job and to like get things rolling. And then if we had time to do something, we did it. And like I said, growing up, you're like, man, this sucks, right? I'm getting the short end of the stick. All my friends are doing all this fun stuff. But man, looking back on that now, holy cow, it's served me so well. And my brothers and sisters, like my brother's ultra successful. Like he built from nothing and he has 3 Napa part stores. Like, and my sister has a big farm here in the valley and with her husband. So like it was awesome, right? Like it made us good humans. Right. But at the time I didn't understand, but I'm so thankful now that I wasn't screwing off during spring breaks.
Well, and you think like knowing every job, right?
Yeah.
If you got to kind of essentially start at the bottom.
Yep.
But if you do every job, then you know how it should be done. You know what the next step is. But you also, I think you learn that job is very important. And so each task is important to make it all work, even though it might seem like anyone could do it, or like, but I think that idea of it's like never beneath you, right? Like it needs to get done
100%.
And then really I think what changes as you scale it up is your responsibilities, right? Like, and, but I do think that's so important to, like, a key to success, or at least I've noticed it with, like, I feel like that for me, like we grew up putting on ropings, and, you know, I started pulling ropes off and working the strip and shoot, and you kind of get worked up. And, but then, you know, like if you wanted to produce a roping, you kind of know every job. Like, and I think that's, I think that is so important to the understanding, like, hey, how to run a ranch, right? If you can do each piece of it, right?
Exactly. Like now I don't do very little on the farming side, because like that's a big part of what we do. I do very little there, but like I could step in and I know how to do it, right? Like I know how to do it. I know how to bale hay. I know how to cut. Like I know how to irrigate. Like, exactly. I know it all. And I think too, like some of the things that were super valuable that I didn't quite get the value of it then was like leadership. Like I remember I was really young and I would have a crew of guys, like grown men with me. And I remember complaining to my dad, like, Dad, they're not listening. And he's like, fire their ass. And I'm like, Dad, I'm 9 years old. How can I fire him? He's like, I got you. He's like, if they don't, you know, like if they think that you're a pushover, he's like, you can fire them. And obviously I never did, but like just having that responsibility at like literally like 8, 9 years old, because I wouldn't be strong enough to do the physical stuff a lot of times. But like, say we were just picking rock, like I would be the guy on the loader and driving it around while guys were picking rocks, and they'd want to slack off. And I'd be like, no, we got to get this done. Like Dad says, you know, we got 2 days to pick these rocks, and they'd want to goof off. And I'm like, no, we got to get it done. So like just the value in the leadership and learning how to lead was like huge. Right. And that's served me really well. Like how to get the most out of the people around you in a good way.
Right. What makes a good leader? Like what makes, like for you, like someone you want to follow, or like what you want to be as that's kind of became your role?
I don't know. Like I was around some guys that just, they make you feel like you're important, but at the same time, like they set a standard that is like, you can see the value in the standard they set, and they live it out themselves. Right. That's what I try to do. Like I'm not a hard ass, but at the same time, I am in a lot of ways, because they know that I'm not going to dip off the standard of what I expect, like the cleanliness standard, the work ethic standard, and I'm right there with them. So I think when you can live it and not just talk about it, and they see it, like they just kind of rise up to it.
Well, and we were kind of talking about this last night too, like the idea of, we've been here for part of the Cowboy Week, and you know, the days start pretty early, and I would say we've been here 5-6 days now. Every day you're one of the last guys, or probably the last guy to leave the arena, riding horses, right? And that's like, I think when that's the standard, right, you know, and that's just part of the culture, I think that makes it where if you're around it, you either like step up to it or you don't. This isn't for you, right? Like this isn't something I want to follow. I think that's what I start seeing. And also I notice, seems like the work that guys, and even us, like we want to work hard here. And I don't know what that is exactly, like what creates that, but it's just like everyone's doing something and kind of doing their best. It's like, well, you don't want to be a weak link. Yeah, you want to, and I think that picks you up pretty quickly too. So. Yeah.
And I think that's valuable. Like when the leader of the operation is and it's not like I do that on purpose, right? Like I mean, in a way, like I'm out there working, but it's not like I look around and make sure that I'm the last one just to show that I'm there. But it just happens, right? And my dad's the same way. Like my dad's getting up there, and like that guy cranks it. Like he works, and he sees that. Like I see that. I seen that all growing up. I see it. I still see it, right? Like he's out there doing stuff all the time. Like to get him to take a day off like not happening, right? But I think I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with the standard, the respect that I give them. Like I give my help a lot of respect. And they show me a lot of respect, and they see how it's not like I'm a guy that, had a little success and I talk about it, but they're like, we go to a show and they're like, yeah, we don't really work that hard, like he just has a good horse.
Yeah.
Like I think about it this way too. Like I feel like, God has put me in a great situation where I could be successful, and I don't want to be, you talk about the weak link. Like I don't want to be the weak link that holds me back because I'm lazy or I'm not disciplined or I'm not, doing the work to be the best version of me that God had planned for me. And like I put a lot of responsibility on myself for that.
Do you think what holds people back from that is like fear of failing or not being good enough? Or what do you think that comes from, of like someone not wanting to kind of go all in on something, I guess? And maybe I guess a better way to kind of go with that is like, as you transition to showing horses, like at some point you're starting to bet on yourself a little bit, and like basically step out of the realm of being just like a rancher, like running a ranch. Like, so the kind of, I guess, take me into like the show horse, like as that comes along, how do you start with that path? But like, as far as like you being able to like put the work in or like kind of bet on yourself, when does that start to come into play?
Well, like the first thing that comes to mind is, and I tell this to my help and people around me too, is like, why not you? Why not me? Right. And I think like I can give an example of that in, where when I was after high school, after a little bit of college, like when I was kind of working around, like I was around some really good hands, but it almost seemed like they kind of put themselves in a box, right? They're like, yeah, I'm a cowboy on a ranch in northern Nevada. I couldn't be a trainer, or I couldn't be a professional roper. Like I love to rope or whatever, but like they almost put themselves in a box. And it's like, no, you guys don't understand. Like some of you guys, and that's what I try to tell them now. It's like, I'm around the best hands in horse training, right? And I'm like, you guys totally could have done what I did. Like if you put in the work and surround yourself with the people, like you guys could have done it. And so like, that's probably my biggest message is, why not you?
Right.
Why not? Like you said, bet on yourself. Like that's all I did is I bet on myself. And I feel like, God did some really cool things looking back. Like he put horses in my life that probably carried the team at the time. Like they drew me up and gave me a glimpse of what was possible. And then it's like, you get a little taste of that and you're like, yeah, why not me? So
would that be?
For sure.
Let's get the background on him just a little bit and what he kind of, let's just start with his story just a little bit, how you got to ride him. Or
so by the time that Time for the Diamond come around, like here's how it all started, like the whole showing thing. Like I was cowboying, I was working for a guy in northern Nevada, Bill Van Norman, and he ranched and had a lot of cows and was a cowboy, and he would take his cowboy horses and go to the county fair and show against trainers and beat them. Like on a regular basis, he would beat them with very little show prep. And I was like, man, that's really cool. And I was like, I think I want to try to show at that local level, right? So I did that. And to get ready for a show, like you have to put yourself out there. Like even at the local level, like you have to be ready to go out there and fail. And I did that. I failed and I went out there and I'm like, oh, I can be better at this. And so I'd go home and I'd grind and figure it out. And then you do it at the local level. And then
right quick, I got to interrupt with this. When you looked at failure early, how did you look at that? Like, so some people are afraid of it and it kind of means that I'm not good enough. Right. And the first thing you say is like, oh, I can get better. Was that always like natural for you to kind of pick up on like?
I think so. Yeah. Like, I think just the determination to be better. Like I seen that growing up, right? Like I seen that on the ranch where my dad took nothing and made it to something. And he was always very very like front runner in trying new things, even if they failed on the farm, in a sense, to like be progressive. Like he's very progressive in his thinking, in his business. And so like seeing that, like that kind of set the tone. So like when I would fail, it wouldn't, yeah, and maybe I'm weird in that sense, but it wouldn't bother me. It would motivate me. Like, because then I would be like, okay, like I'm going to go home. I'm going to grind this. I'm going to figure it out. Like I can do this. And then you get a little taste of it on a, gradually bigger scale. And then it's like, oh, wow, I can do this. And so like, I first started showing at the fair. And then from there, I was like, well, I'm pretty all right with these 2-year-olds. I'll buy a 2-year-old and I'll take it to the 2-year-old sale at the fraternity. And then I did that. And like, it blew me away. I'm riding around there with all these guys that I see in magazines, and Doug Williamson comes up to me, doesn't know me. I know nobody. I'm just kicking around a colt, right? And he comes up and he says, boy, I'm going to offer you this once. You take 50,000 for him? And I look up and I was like, I'll have to think about that, sir. And he's all, okay, and rides away. And I'm like, wow, like here's Doug. And at the time, like Doug was like the top of the game.
Yeah.
And
so, like, and this is Cactopus, right?
This is Cactopus.
So you're starting to show him a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I take that back. That wasn't Cactopus. That was my first sale 2-year-old.
Okay.
That was my first sale 2-year-old.
Okay.
I apologize.
But it offered you 50,000 for
cold turkey. Knew nothing. Just seen me riding him.
All right. So what does $50,000 mean to you at that point? Like, I mean,
it's huge. It's huge, right? Like that's, I'm used to working on ranches for like $1,500 a month.
Okay.
So like that's huge.
It's almost a life-changing amount, right? Like, or you can make some really neat moves, you'd say, with $50,000, right?
Compared to the $1,500 I was making a month, you're dang right.
Okay.
You're dang right.
So sorry, but to turn that down, like,
yeah,
that's a big thing, right?
Right, for sure. But that just fed, like I've always been of the mindset of, and we kind of talked about this, is like, why not you? Bet on yourself, right? Bet on yourself. So like, anyway, that kind of showed me that, okay, maybe I do have something to offer in this industry, right? Like, yeah. I mean, I just barely showed up, and like the top guy wants my horse. All right. So anyway, that happened. And then I took a horse that was actually raised on that ranch, in the Van Norman Ranch. And I was like, I think I want to try this fraternity thing. And so I trained him, and like, I didn't know a lot of people then. So like, I would just, like, YouTube wasn't really a thing then. And I just ground it out and did what I thought, and like had a little bit of success. Like I went to my first show and I marked a 218.5 in the herd work. And I'm like, holy cow, like Todd Bergen just marked a 218.5. Like, how is this possible? Right.
Yeah.
And then I mark a 218.5 in the reining. And I was like, geez Louise, like, holy cow, like I've never even done this. And I'm marking some scores with the big guys. Then I got my butt kicked down the fence, but needless to say, like I was like, okay, this is cool. Went to the real fraternity. That was at the pre-fraternity. Went to the real fraternity, made a few little showman mistakes, and I was like a half point out of the limited finals. And like if I would have taken out like my greenness showing, like my scores, like you take those penalties, I'd have made the open finals. So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I screwed up, but like this is fixable, right? With a little bit of work, like I could have made the open finals. Like that's crazy. So that just fed me to this. And so that year, we were at the sale, and I see Time for the Diamond. Like, we're going to buy it. The plan is, me and my dad are going to go together. I have no money. Like, he's like, let's buy a prospect. We'll train him, and then, we can sell him later, and you can have something to show, right? Like, I'll train him for free. He'll put up the money to buy him. Long story. But I see Time for the Diamond. And one time Peptos are like kind of just on the scene, and I didn't think I could afford one. Like it was like the second full crop or something, but I see we're walking down and I could see him sticking his head and neck out of a stall. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this horse. Like and you can see it now, right? Like his head and neck is like second.
He's flashy. Like he pops. Like
he pops.
Even last night, there's 20 horses in the arena. When he walks in, our cameras are they're on him, right?
Yeah,
like it's just natural. Like,
he's just got it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, we'll take a run at him and see if we can buy him. I was like, I was hoping we could get him, but I didn't think we could afford him.
Right.
And $9,500. And I'm like, holy cow, I got this horse, right? So I get him. And then by then I'm like, I ride him. Hey, this horse is special, right? He's incredible.
So what makes him special? Like what's like when, because I think, I don't know if this is like a God thing, right? Or like hey, like if you're just creating opportunities for yourself, they seem to happen more and more, right? Like,
yep.
But he kind of pops out to you. The fact that you can't afford him didn't think. But as then you're starting to ride him, I think a lot of people want to tell themselves, like in that situation, that this horse is special or this is my chance, right? Or like something's different. But like to you, what makes that? Like what what characteristics do you see in this horse that you're like, all right, this is different or this is special? Well,
I've never had a horse that is so selfless as that horse. Like if he even gets a hint that that's what I was after, like he's all in. Yeah. Like he's all in. Like, up into the fraternity, like I can remember maybe 2 or 3 rough days, and they were probably, for sure they were my rough days. Like just very selfless. Like if he thought I was wanting him to do it, like he was all in right from the beginning. Yeah. Like very much all in. And, sometimes with that, a horse that tries that hard, like they make a lot of mistakes because they overdo things, but like he was very measured, but very all in. Like it was just crazy. So I had him, and I'd been showing a little bit since then. And, like I'm starting to learn the industry and be around some good people. So I was really blessed to be able to go ride with Todd Bergen. He put a deal together up in Oregon where like a few trainers would come. They'd get a load of cattle and we would work horses and share ideas. Kind of like Cowboy Week in a way. Yeah. We would get together and I was asking him for help, and he's like, well, let me just ride him. And he gets on him and he rides him 20 minutes. And then he's like at dinner, he's like, hey, I'm going to offer you this. And he's like, I don't want to offend you, but like, you want to sell that horse? And I'm like, why do you want him? He's like, that's a really good horse. I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, what are you thinking? He's like, I'll give you 100,000 right now. And I'm like, holy cow, 100,000? Like, that's huge. Yes. Like huge, especially at the time. Like very huge. And so, but it made me sick, right? Because here we are like a month and a half out from the fraternity, and I've got this horse like that's heads and tails above any horse I've ever ridden. Like I'm wanting to get a foothold in the industry and start to like really be a trainer at that point. And so like it literally made me sick. Like I didn't know what to do. So I called a friend of mine, kind of a mentor friend of mine. And I was like, well, what do you think? And he says, it's simple. And I was like, what do you mean it's simple? He's like, what's your dream worth? And I'm like, what's my dream worth? He's like, is your dream worth 100,000 to do this thing? And I was like, no, it's worth way more than that. He's like, well, there's your answer. So I didn't sell him. Right. So I essentially, I didn't sell him. And at the time to win the fraternity paid 100,000. So I'm like, I could win the fraternity. I can win the fraternity and sell him right now. And then what are the repercussions if he doesn't show? Yeah. Like, right. So honestly, like if he doesn't show, what's he worth it? Like nothing. I mean, like it goes substantially. Oh yeah. It's 30,000. Yeah. Like 25 at the time. Like he's worth something, but he's damn sure not worth 100,000. Yeah. Right. And so, and a lot can happen. Like he could get hurt tomorrow and I couldn't even be able to show him in the fraternity. And like, there's all these things, but I'm just like, you know what? Like you're 100%. My dream is worth way more than 100,000. And so I made the decision, never second guessed it. I'm like, if Todd thinks he can win, then I got to get myself ready. And so like, I just doubled down on myself. And yeah, so that gave me probably, instead of like second guessing it, that gave me confidence to think like, I've got this horse, right?
You got a chance.
I got a chance. Like
Right.
I can do this. Even though in the back of my mind, I'm like, I was just hoping to make the finals, but I knew that I had a caliber of a horse that was like capable. And lo and behold, like we go to the fraternity. At the time, there's like a limited open I don't think I was in the limited at that time. No, I was in the intermediate. So there's an intermediate finals, and it's a completely separate finals than the open finals. And so I made that finals, and like he was good, we were good, but I think I finished like 7th or 8th in the intermediate finals. And then there's a day off, and then the open finals. And the same deal, like even though I just was 8th in the intermediate, I had the open, but I'm like, I can still do this. And everything fell together. The runs fell together. Like I can really say this, like there was an anointing on those finals for me and him. No doubt about it. Like it was, I don't know, like it was so peaceful. It was so put together. Like, I don't know. It was crazy. It was crazy.
So at that point from the finals, the mental side, like, because I always got to go here, right? Like the mental performance, right? So this is going to be the highest pressure situation
I've ever been in,
right?
By far.
Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of take me through the build up on like how that works as far as like getting to the finals. Like what does that look like? The actual like process. How many times have you shown this horse like up to get to the finals? Like what does that all kind of look like? And then like mentally, where are you at? Because it builds up, right? Like the pressure, like as you get closer and closer to the end, like you start to, I mean, that's where it comes in. Those is where you want to be perfect. And that's where it's really easy to get out at the moment, I guess you'd say, and out of your process. So kind of take me through that, like mentally, how that works. Because you're saying lining it up, but to me, I feel like that's like flow state, right? Like you're just in your element for some reason.
And like I was so naive to competing that I knew what I was doing and the opportunity, but at the same time, like ignorance is bliss too.
Dangerous, huh?
I was dangerous because like I had a lot of belief in myself and my horse. And so like, I think some of that preparation, like I didn't overthink it in ways, like I didn't over prepare in ways. It was just like, I was just having so much fun that it was almost easy. Right. And it seems like after that win, it almost got harder in a sense, because then I had to learn how to compete. Like,
you had expectations.
I had expectations. And then with expectations of myself and what I'm capable of, like it almost got harder after that. But like I would say at that stage, ignorance is bliss. And like I had a lot of self-belief in what we could get done and why not me? And we just went for it. Like I don't remember a lot of the details other than like just little comments that like fueled you too. Like I remember Boyd Rice, he said to me, he's like, did you make that intermediate finals and stuff too? And I was like, yeah. And he's all good. And he walked away. I'm like, why would he say that? Oh, because if you make the intermediate finals the 2 days before, like your horse is going to be tired. It's another run. Like the chances of him doing that and doing good in the open. So that was like, holy cow. In a weird sense, he just told me he believed in what we could get done. So like in a weird way, like those little comments like fueled you.
It's funny because you could take it the other way too.
Yeah.
You could be worried about, oh, what if my horse is tired here? Like, what if I need to do more? I love this idea though, like the ignorance is bliss, right? Because it essentially you're just focused on the process, right? Like you're not focused on results. Like you like, why not me is the thing, but there's no expectations. Like I said earlier, like it's just, you're showing the horse, right? Like you're doing your job, what you have trained for, right? And I think that's the unique thing, right? So as that changes and you say, hey, you've won, right? So lines up With 2013 futurity, right?
2013. Yep.
So you win the 100,000, right?
Yep. Yeah. And like, I remember going home thinking, like, I don't know how I did this, but man, what, like in private conversations, like with me and my wife, I'm like, holy cow, like I just topped the pinnacle of the sport. Like I've got $1 million riders next to me that have never won this. And like, I did this in 3 years of showing, like, holy cow. Right. And then, so that was crazy, but I like, we talk about God's timing. I feel like he did that to give me the confidence to like, take it even more. Like, he's like, you can do this, like got me hooked, got me like the clients I needed to like really, really grow this thing. And then, like here it is 2024 and I haven't won it since, right? Like I've been close, like so close a time or two. But I feel like with that, God's always trying to draw us closer to him and make us more in his image to be an example for everybody else. And I feel like he put me there and then he's been working on me. And it's not about the wins. Like I used to think it was about the wins. And now like I've kind of given that up and I'm, it's about the relationships and impacting the people around you and things like that. And so, there was a period there in the middle between 13 and now that like, I feel like God was really working on me from a spiritual standpoint, a person standpoint, a leadership standpoint of like, hey, like you can do it, but like there's more important things than just winning. Right. Like I've like in 16, I was, and everybody can say this, but like I had another horse that was pretty awesome, like really awesome. And going into the fence work of the finals, like me and another guy, we had like a big lead. It was one of us was going to win it. And I had a huge first turn down the fence. Like I got this turn and in my mind, I'm like, here's number 2.
Yeah.
And my horse kind of stumbles just a little bit. We get a little bit behind, still had a good score, but I ended up 3rd. Like that was tough, right? Like I put so much work into it, so much effort.
And one turn away.
One turn, like literally one slip. Like, and it wasn't like a slip and a fall, but like the ground gave away like 2 strides. The cow got a little bit away from me. I go from a 220 whatever run to a 217, 3rd place.
Was that the hardest loss?
It was so hard because I put so much into it. Like I wanted it for what the world had to offer more than what God had to offer. And so like that one stung. Like I literally cried myself to sleep that night because I knew the opportunity doesn't come around. And like, I felt like a failure. Like I felt like I let one like really get away. Like 100%. Like I cried myself to sleep that night.
Does that become a big impact in a positive way now? Like understanding that loss? Like
oh yeah. Yeah. So then, that was in 16. We go a few years by then, God's still working on me. Like I've had a lot of success by then. Rolls us into, like I've made the fraternity finals a bunch of times, like at least I always try to talk myself into thinking I have a chance in the finals. Like I most of the time, if I make the finals, like I believe if I get things done right and it's my night, like I can do it. But in reality, like I probably haven't had that special of a horse, but like at the same time, like you have a special horse, but if it's your night, it's your night. Right. So in 2021, I had another really good horse. Well, 2 really, but I had one that, we dominated the prelims. Like Sarah and I were way ahead of everybody else. Like this horse is legit. Like he can do it. So we get to the finals, same deal. Sarah gets down the fence or gets out of the herd. I get out of the herd. She marks a 226 in the rein and I mark a 226 and a half. Like we're out there. It's hers or eyes to win. And I am not kidding you. So she goes before me. She goes out there, and she had a little tough situations in the fence work, and like she left the door like wide open for me. So I'm like, okay, here it is. Like, here's your chance. Go out there. Huge first turn, huge second turn, great first circle, switch. Like I switched to my other circle. I'm literally 3 strides of circling my cow, and I win, right? About like 3 strides from that, the cow, like kind of out of nowhere, like just hit the brakes, turns underneath me and comes this way. And like, I didn't complete that circle. Like I was 10 feet from completing it, but I didn't get it completed. Had to go around, put it up, third again. Right? It's like, wow. But that one didn't hurt near as bad as the one before. Like, I think those are the life lessons that God was teaching me. And like that one, like it really didn't sting. It really didn't sting. And then it did, but like, to look at Lee Deacon ended up winning the fraternity. And I didn't know this about Lee at the time, but Lee gets, he's doing his press conference stuff, and he's talking about like how God has been working with him. And like, it was when it's God's time, you can't stop it. And when it's not his time, you can't force it. And like, it was Lee's time. Like, and Lee totally gives credit to God and what they've been working on and all these things. And now I see the same thing for Lee that happened to me in 13. Like, Lee was kind of an up and comer, like hadn't hardly made the finals. I mean, he had a little bit here and there. And then now Lee thinks he went from somebody that wasn't even on the radar to now at the show, you're like, what's he got?
Right.
In a year, like he needed that, like Lee needed that for him. And God wanted that for what his plan was. And like, I was totally okay with that.
I think ego, right? So tell me about how ego kind of works.
Yeah.
In being a horseman and then having to have a business behind it. And how do you get to like your philosophies on ego and how it should work in your life?
Well, like, I think, if we talk about 16, why did I cry myself to sleep that night? Because it was my ego. Like, yeah. I wanted that for me. I didn't want it for the right reasons. Like, I wanted that for me. Right.
Right.
Yeah. And then like, it's just,
because I guess if you don't have much ego, you can look at it like, hey, I did everything I can do. Everyone else like thinks I won third, but in my mind, I know I can win. Like, it's a first place, like effort, right? I guess, or you're in that situation. So you can kind of be happy with yourself and your effort. Like, you've done everything you can do, and you don't need that gratification, I guess, from someone else or the outside, right? Right.
100%. And then the way the finals shook out, like my other horse that I made the finals that same year in 2021, at the time, I thought I really had the chance to win it on my Rebel horse, but my other horse was right there too. And the cow kind of pushed me into the fence. I kind of hang on the fence, get a penalty there. Literally, if that arena's got a big oval and that I got down towards that oval, the cow kind of hit into my horse, pushed him up into the fence coming to him. He kind of hung his head right there because the cow literally pushed us up a stride. I hit the corner of the fence, hang up for a second, crush the rest of the run. But if he gets that cow turned 2 strides earlier, like, I would have won it on him too.
Yeah.
So like there was just little stupid things, but like driving home from that fraternity, like I did not feel like a failure. I felt like, man, I did the work. I did all the right things. Like, I was this close on 2 horses. I took 2 and I was this close on 2.
Right.
Like, things are right. And like you said, like if I do the work and I do it for the right reasons, yeah, like I felt good about it. Where in 16, I didn't feel good about it because my ego was in the way.
Well, I think you've got this road on the wall. Ride the horse you have today. And I think in 2013, you could say that's pretty safe that's the foundation,
100%.
right?
Yep.
And as you get those wins and now you've got clients coming in, is that something that you have to kind of learn the hard way a little bit? Or how do you get to that mind frame of like doing that? Or do you find yourself getting away from it? Or
No, it's easier all the time. Like I said early on, you want it for you want it for selfish reasons, whether it's to prove yourself or, respect amongst your peers and stuff. And like, I think some of that's okay. Like there's a healthy balance there too. But now more than ever, like I'm doing this because like, this is my passion. This is like I love it.
right.
I love it. Like God put something in me that makes me love horses and gives me an opportunity to, hopefully be an example to other people of what's capable and, that you can live a life, like you can live a good, clean kind of a life. Like I'm not saying I'm perfect because I'm not. Nobody is. But like you can do this in a world that's like increasingly tough.
Yeah. And you find that love for horses because like we're out here at Cowboy Week, right? And starting some 2-year-olds and it's first ride outside.
Yep.
And you've got this big group. What is it? Probably 12, 14 people riding.
Yeah, at least. Yep.
Yeah. And it's all kind of first ride on these horses. And to me, just watching you like interact, like this is, you could spend every day right there doing this, like working with this horse. Like that's his,
Yep.
you love this process, right?
Yep. Yeah, I do. If I didn't feel like God wanted me to go show and give me the platform to go out there and kind of have a bit of a platform, like I would hide. Like I would just stay here and grind.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause I love it. Like that's the part I love. And I like showing. Don't get me wrong. I love showing. I love competition. Like I love how it makes me be better. Like I totally love that. But at the same time, I could be real happy just doing cowboy stuff here and just doing my thing. Yep. So it goes back to like doing it for the right reasons, right?
Yeah.
And it makes, so having that passion for the process makes the showing like easier, and it's more like it's getting more predictable, right? Like just being able to duplicate that. It's crazy.
And do you think that like, is that one of the biggest lessons like coming from your dad is like, kind of a roundabout way you get that process, right? Like, hey, we're making like a process is like improving, right? Do you think that's kind of been like the foundation of like what you've seen from, I guess, or is that what would be the biggest lesson you kind of got from your dad growing up and that even just shines through today?
Yeah. Like improvement, like the confidence to say, why can't you show horses at the highest level? Like, why can't I start a ranch from nothing and build it into what it is, right? Like, yeah, why not? And then like the improvements, like, yeah, I think the improvements, like for me, it's the improvements in my horsemanship and understanding the horse. But like my dad, he likes to farm, but man, he gets fired up about projects.
Yeah.
Like fired up. Like you've been around him.
Yeah, he was telling me about building barns out here and doing stuff. And
making things better and improving, and like he's all about it. And like I've seen that, lived that, and 100%.
That's awesome. So the philosophy of do less more often. As a horse trainer, is that something?
That's hard.
Is that something you like? How do you come up with that, or like what is the reminder there? Like what you see with that? Like, because I think that's a strong statement, right? Like to do less with a horse.
Well,
and I guess in what context does that kind of mean? Because that's something I've heard a few times out here.
If like horse training, if you can get them, like I feel like if you can get them to understand why they're doing it and like be an active participant in the process and unlock their mind to like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like I genuinely feel like they get a lot of like gratification. Like I did that. And then it's like, cool. You know, you took that first step in a turnaround. Right on. Good for you. And then it's like, you get that, and then you get 3, and then you get 4, and then you go a little faster. And then pretty soon they're going as fast as they can to like help you get that done. But like for me and my deal, it all starts with that first step. Like it all starts with them making the connection mentally to what you want to do. And it's so easy to get caught up in the end product. And we want it so bad for our ego that we just force them to the end result, and they don't come along for the ride, so to speak. And so it's like this, it's forced, it's just a different look. But if you can get them on the team, and it literally starts with that first step and doing less and waiting longer and setting it up so they can make that decision, like it's huge and it's lasting. That's the thing. Like intimidation and like our ego and forcing, it doesn't last. Like it only works when your horse is in a good mood, right? If everything lines up and your horse is feeling good today, then, oh, wow, he felt good today. And then 10 days in a row, he feels like crap. Well, he's not helping you.
Right. and that's that kind of, I think that's the key of like horsemanship for what I see around here, like, right, is being able to have them on your team, to show them, like, is that what kind of makes a great horseman to you? Or like if you were to say, hey, what if you could embody like what a great horseman is, what would that be? It wouldn't be like
I would have probably used to thought of that as like, what can your horses do? And if they're not like ultra soft or bendy or whatever it is, like then it's not like, you're not a good hand. But like I felt some things like if your horse is helping you with the job and they feel good about it, like it's okay to have a tie down on. Like that's okay. Like, and I'm not saying like it's not if you do, because your horse is a little stiffer in the bridle. Like there's reasons that, like in the roping, there's reasons that you need them on your hand to execute that in places at a high level, right? Like there's reasons for you put them in your hand in the box so that they have something to fire off of. Like if you backed in the box on one of my show horses and he got soft, like that softness is going to take away from his performance. Right. So like it doesn't have to be the same style to be awesome. Like I felt that. I went in 21 after the futurity. My brother was there to watch and different things, and we took a day just to kind of hang out in Dallas, Fort Worth. And so first thing I wanted to do is like, I was like, well, let's go to Brace. Like they've invited me over there. Let's go over there. Like go spend a Sunday afternoon, which I'm sure you have, with the Bray family. Like I love those people. Well, love what they're all about. And so we went over there, and as soon as I get there, like they're like, here, let's rope, here, get on this horse, do this. You want to talk about intimidated, right? Like I ride horses for a living and I know how to rope, but like, I don't know how to rope like that. Like ranch roping and doctoring a yearling is way different, right? So like I was ultra intimidated, but anyway, we get on some horses. Ken puts me on one of his head horses and to feel it. But I go through a horse and then I get to like a bay horse. And I think I might be messing this up, but I think he said that like Eric Rogers and Peyton were roping then. And do you remember like a big bay head horse of Ken's?
Yeah, Ken's had a couple around there that like Eric would ride a little bit too.
Yeah, so like this thing is like rodeo ready. And so it was so fun for me to ride it because like I said about you can get some stigmas like with a barrel horse, and like the purest horsemanship people can look at that and be like, oh, that horse is stiff in the face and all these things. Like, I don't look at it that way. And it was really cool with like that particular horse, right? Because I'm riding him around and I'm kind of warming him up and getting the feel for him. And he doesn't feel that special, like just to ride around. Like, honestly, he feels like a nice ranch horse to me compared to my show horses. Like, he doesn't feel bad, but he just feels like a nice ranch horse. And then I put him in the context of what he's great at. he felt as soft and as willing and as in tune as any show horse I have in his element. And that was really cool. Right. That was so cool to feel. Like, you know, like I said, feel wise, like a tangible feel wise, like when I rode him around, like he felt fine. He didn't feel spectacular, but like within the context of like heading a steer for Peyton to heel, holy cow, he was with me. Like, I mean, dialed.
Yep.
So that was really cool.
That same process, like they're thinking, like they're running to the cow in a way that it feels like you've got spots to throw your rope, and that's like, they have feel, right? They're with you, like kind of what you said earlier.
He was so with me. Like everything that I was thinking that I needed to get done, right or wrong,
as well.
He was right there and as active as a participant as I've ever felt in that setting. Like it was unreal to me.
So you've been showing now for over 10 years.
Yeah, I think I started in 2011. So yeah.
Okay. You've been after it for a little while.
Yeah.
If you could give yourself like knowing like yourself now, like if you give yourself a piece of advice or one thing you would tell your younger self as you're kind of getting going, what would that be?
Well, I think like we talked a little bit about it, but like the period at the beginning, and I mean, I'm a long ways from finishing, but the period at the beginning, it was about like my passion. And then I had like the success of the fraternity. And then there was a period in the middle that it wasn't about that. Like it was about proving myself for me. And like there was a kind of a ego check in the middle. And now I'm getting back to the like ultra pure. And even in the middle, like I'm not saying it was bad, but like there's a reason you cry yourself to sleep at night. And it was because I felt like, you know, I needed that for me. And now like I've almost learned to let that go. So like, and I don't know that it's possible because, you know, God's growing and stretching us and doing things with us. But like, if I could have went at it with the joy at the beginning and the joy that I have now through that middle, like, man, how fun would that be? But at the same time, I needed that, right? I needed that to grow. And like, it was a blessing to be like that because it made me better now.
Right. So
like, it was all worth it. It was where I needed to be to.
It's hard, right? Because you want to loving the process because you spend so much time in the process, mm-hmm. right? Like it's just constant.
Yep.
So it's like if you kind of look back and you get that, and that's where like the ego thing, a result orientation or however you want to phrase that, but it takes you away from maybe loving the process because you could feel so far away from those results.
Yep.
And I think that's a tricky thing, but it sure can lead to a really productive lifestyle. Like I think, and definitely it's okay to mess up, but to understand the humility to know like, hey, why am I so upset right now?
Right.
And then to be able to change is probably the most important thing, like the humility side. And
well, and it translates to the people around you. Like you guys said it yesterday, we were chatting at dinner, and I've had pretty much anybody that's been around horse training that comes here, they say the same thing. They're like, oh my God, I cannot believe the atmosphere here. Like your help is like, they work their guts out, but they're happy. Like they, you know, like you can't hardly send them home at the end of the evening if they think they're going to miss something cool.
Yeah.
Like just creating that culture. Like, I think that's a powerful thing. But it comes with the love and the joy of what you do. Like, I think that's the difference where, you know, how many horse trainers do you go to or whatever, you see it and it's just like everybody seems miserable, right? The horses
it's
the
people,
like the help.
It's kind of off-putting sometimes when you see it. Like I look at trainers sometime and you can tell it just looks like they're treading water.
Yep.
And I'm just like, the horses look that way, everyone, and it makes me not be a fan of, and it's weird, but it's just like, what? Like I love what they're doing, but at the same time, I'm like, I hate that has to be there.
Yeah. Even even if they're successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are very successful in that sense, right? So like, it's like, what defines success, right? That's a big thing because, like the outside world, you can look in and be like, oh, they got it together. But you look at them and that like, there's joy with a win, but I mean, it's different. It's different. And that's like what I've come to realize. And that's what I strive for is like, it is about like, you need a certain amount of wins and success to stay relevant, to give you the platform to be influential, but it ain't about that.
Well, right quick too, because you think about that, if that doesn't come and you lose the clients and you fail and you have to do something else, well, just like looking at you, well, that's okay because you're already just doing what you love. Like that's like falling back to that, like it wouldn't probably change much outside of your life other than you'd stay in Dyer, Nevada more, right?
Right. Right.
And so that makes it like, it's almost like you can't lose.
Exactly.
Because
you can't lose.
You're just doing what you love.
Yep.
And so knowing that, and I think that's what sometimes gets in people's mind. If I fail at this, it's over.
Yep. For sure.
And having that wall put up.
Yep. And then anytime there's a block right there, like you can't be the best version of yourself, like in competition and in life, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's an underlying uneasiness, like you're held back. Even if you were to win an event, like you're held back, like for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about the best week of the whole year though. Like
Cowboy Week.
Yeah, Cowboy Week.
Yeah.
Give me the rundown on it right quick because we're at the end of it right now. And like I said, the experience has been incredible, but I don't know how you've been able to create this atmosphere. So just kind of take me through how this gets going.
So like to put it in a nutshell, like the guys that I was around in Northern Nevada, Bill Van Norman. So like that culture that we're just talking about that you brought up of like just how genuinely happy everybody is here and around and stuff. He created that for me when I was there. Like he made everybody feel important. Like you didn't want to be the guy that let him down, not because you were scared of him, because you had that much respect for him. And so like, it was awesome to be around a guy like that like you would leave there thinking like, I can do anything. Inspired. Right. And so he passed away. And when I was like, man, because he would do essentially the same thing there. He didn't call it Cowboy Week or anything, but like cowboys from around would bring their horses to start in an atmosphere just like this. And like by the end of the week, like everybody was glowing and like had a recharge to go home and do it. And I'm like, man, if I ever get to where I can put something like that together, I'm going to do it. And so when I won the fraternity and took that money and bought this indoor building, I'm like, I got to do this for my friends. Because like I said, again, too, like I want to show them that this is totally capable. Like these are some handy dudes and I want to get them together. So we got together, we do this. And I think sometimes from the outside looking in, it can look like a clinic so that I can bring people here, friends, and show them what I know. Not at all. Like it's a bunch of guys getting together, gals, and doing it to genuinely get better for the love and the passion that we have and sharing ideas. Like there's no egos, right? Like, if they're showing me something or I'm showing them or whatever, like it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. Like how many times this week have you seen like just random, there's probably like 14, 15 of us riding and you'd see like 7 little segments going on where they pull them and be like, hey, Susanna, help Joe. Joe says, hey, Susanna, help me with my turnaround. Cool. You got that going on over here. You got Rye helping somebody over there. It's freaking awesome. It's so cool.
The dialogue and there's zero ego. That's like the first thing you notice. Yeah. And when I say that, it's like you're kind of, it's like it's your place and essentially like you're kind of probably guiding what gets done.
Yeah.
but you're asking as many questions about, hey, how are you getting this horse to do this? Or what do you think here?
Yep.
And the culture of like, hey, get on this horse and ride him. Tell me what you think. And there's different perspectives all the time, but it's like you guys are trying to do the same thing. And so you're trying to work on like you'll see that dialogue at times.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, how did you get this horse there? Because I'm getting him there it's the same spot, but it's different.
It's different.
And so it's just, it literally is about the horse.
Yep.
Like, and how to do it. And there's no intentions outside of that. And
Right.
I just have never, I've never seen nothing like it.
Right.
Just as far as like that many people, that many personalities,
That caliber of people too.
that caliber.
That's the thing too. Like maybe there's probably a lot of people here that nobody's ever heard of, but like I'm around like some handy people, and like the caliber of people to be like that is insane. Right. And to be that open and be vulnerable. Like, I think that's a big thing. Like a lot of times people get to thinking, they have things going on, and then the ego gets in the way and they don't want to be vulnerable to learn and expose themselves to criticism. And it's not even criticism, but to help. And like here, you don't see that. Like everybody's vulnerable. Like, honestly, if I could, and like you said, I kind of have to be the ringleader in a sense because we're setting up this deal and we're doing this. But like, I feel like this week, and it because I had to, but like, I would have liked to, instead of being involved in like maybe 60% of the conversations, like I would have preferred it if I'd have been involved in like 30.
Right.
And I could have selfishly like sucked a little bit more out of everybody. Right.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah. But that's what's crazy is you're wanting to like learn. Right.
Yeah.
And I've heard this a long time ago, and I thought it was a really cool quote, but it's like, it kind of goes like, if you send two fighters to the top of the mountain and they fight every single day, when they come down and fight a group of people that had been training with each other, like the group would have so much more knowledge that would have been shared than just these two people. Right. And I kind of look at it, that same mentality is like when you get a lot of knowledge there and philosophies and just all this experience in one area, there's so much to learn, and
so much,
and it from life lessons to training and everything. And it's, that is incredible to actually see that.
Well, I think what's cool too, like we've talked a little bit about the culture, but, and you were able to kind of live it. And I'm not saying that it's all me, because like the Brian and the Joe that were here and stuff, like they gave me that example. And like, I've been able to kind of recreate that here, but like, like Susanna, for example, she teaches at FRC, that college, like she's trying to create that culture of what we have here in a setting of a college. And, like Rye with his cowboy crew, he's doing it there and like making really good humans, right? Like, I feel like we learn, like I learned from, Brian and Joe and Bill and those guys, like how to be a better person and like influence. It just goes, it started, like you think about the 15 people here, and then when they leave and they can not only get better with a horse, but, be inspired to be better leaders, like the trickle down from that is like huge.
Right.
It's so huge. And like how many lives are going to be touched? Like Bill and Brian and Joe touched me, and like it just, the trickle down is insane, right?
Yeah. And you said this earlier, the horse, like the communication with the horses, like almost kind of like brings you closer to God. And it's just like, because you're learning to speak this language of a horse, right? Like what to communicate that, and to know like what their intentions are, because they are pretty pure. Yeah. And so that has to bring that out of you.
Yeah. And so, it does. Like a horse, they know if you're doing it for the right reasons, and you can see it. Like, when a horse has been forced for different reasons, and when a horse is really wanting to do something, like you can see it. And like what I love about horses is it's so much like our relationship with God. You know, God takes us exactly where we are, and he's happy, more than happy to meet us there and move forward.
Yeah.
And a horse is the same way. You know, like if a horse, you can make mistakes, and like their forgiveness factor, like Christ forgives us, is second to none. Like you can make a mistake with a horse one day, come back the next day, and it's like you move forward and move on, and it's just like it never happened. Especially when they're like you're starting them.
Yeah.
Like they're so pure, and they just take you from where you're at, and they roll with it. And I think like for an animal to have that, to where they, like I said, I feel like it's crazy the parallels there, where they will take you exactly where you are, and they're more than happy to move forward with you, just like Christ is with us.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter your past, like he forgives you, and he's happy to meet you and move forward. Where like I think a lot of times we think that, you know, we're not worthy, or like we're not worthy, so I can't bring it myself to that. And like a horse is crazy that way, that like they always have that self-worth to like move forward. And it's just, the parallels are like crazy.
Right. Man, I feel like that's a great way to wrap this up. I mean, I can keep going if we keep going, but we got breakfast cooking at the bunkhouse, and we've been informed we got to get some breakfast in our schedule today.
Yeah, some breakfast and some sleep.
Yeah. Cowboy week, there's a lot of breakfast, but maybe not as much sleep during Cowboy week.
No.
So one thing like I've always wondered about, right, is my parents, they have their brand like for their horses, and I've kind of always I've just used their brand on my horses, and then as I like create a business, and you know branding is a big thing, and name recognition, and so with you know growing up on a ranch, having a brand, right, is a big thing. Mm-hmm. But the performance horse side of it has you're stepping out, right, from from kind of your dad's thing, and it's becoming your thing, right? So as you decide to start growing your brand, like what does that kind of look like, and what has been the philosophy behind that?
Well, I always wanted to make sure that like I stayed true to like how I was raised and all of those things. Like I wanted to stay true to who I was, and like dance with the girl that got me there.
Yep.
So to speak. So like, you know, all the guys I was around, like they didn't have like the insignia. And I don't have a problem with it. Like, I think people might think that I have a problem with it. I don't. Like, that's just not me.
Right.
Like, that's just not me on the ranch growing up as a ranch kid. Like, you know, a lot of times we'd either have like a blue shirt or like an earth tone shirt, and it's what we did. And so like, I really wanted to try to stay true to that as much as I could, and like stay the guy that, even though I have a bigger platform, like I wanted to stay that guy.
You're Nevada. Like you're a Nevada cowboy.
Nevada cowboy, yeah.
Like when I see you, I've been around them. I'm like, yeah, that's a Nevada cowboy.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to stay. Like I didn't want to stay a kid that grew up a Nevada cowboy and then turned into like a prissy horse trainer or whatever, right?
Right. Well, and it's just like, as you bring companies on, like we were kind of talking about this, like a boot company. Mm-hmm. What's the boot companies that we were? Cerna. So you wore their boots for 3 years before you even endorse them, right? And then things like that, like this is what you do. These are the, like, you don't necessarily, they're part of like who you are, what you want to be with on your journey. Like Times, for example, they have the style that you like.
Exactly.
So you're not changing your style. You're like, hey, I'm gonna wear this shirt regardless.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been like that with all my sponsorships. Like if I didn't already use your product for like a while, like, you know, because especially with some success, like you
want to sell out.
Yeah, you want to sell out. Like
right?
people want to be a part of your team, and that's fine and that's good. Like that's all good. But like for me, like I wanted to hold on to that and really, like I I take a lot of responsibility in the fact that like if somebody sees me endorsing a product, like I want it to be like something that I'm like 100%. So like Classic Equine, the Braze Equibrand, like I'm all in. I was all in on that for years. Like I am all in with them as a company, with them as a people, morals, all that. And so like, I mean, I want that relationship. So like if it's more of a corporate type relationship, like I don't have those. Like,
right.
you know, like Kimes, for example, like I'm really good friends with Matt and Amanda Kimes.
Yeah.
And like the Kimes jeans, I literally wore them for probably 3 or 4 years, maybe longer, before I decided to approach them about a deal and I wore them because they were the best and they lasted the longest.
Like, yeah, you tested them out.
I tested them out, and that's what I spend my money on. And like just little things like that, I wanted to make sure that if I'm getting behind them. And so I think with that is the authenticity that you see from an outsider, right?
Right.
Like you don't see like me selling out for a $50 patch on my shirt just because I can have a patch. And I have no problem with patches. Like, don't get me wrong. But like if it's something that I get behind, like I do the same thing with my brand. Like if somebody, asks me to do something, like I never answer right away. Like I always go home, pray about it, ponder, is this who I want to align my brand with, and then go forward.
Right. And as you're like building your brand, right? Like let's talk about coming up with it. Cause I mean, you know what I mean? Like it's cool, but it's like I don't know if we were recording when I said this or not, but I recognized it before I knew you, right? Mm-hmm. Like the first time I went to the World's Greatest, people like kind of just had like known you. I was like, oh, he's so like cool. Like, and I didn't really like, it was weird to me, but it was like the fact that you stuck out before anyone, before it's an atmosphere that I don't really know. Mm-hmm. So obviously like your personal brand and like what you're putting out there it does separate. Right. And I don't know what does that, but cause it's something I'm trying to do always, right? You're trying to be authentic. You're trying to be different, but I don't know. How have you looked at that?
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as the facial hair, I got that when I was trying to be a cool cowboy.
8 years old, probably.
No, like in being a cowboy in Northern Nevada, like a lot of people had this and
they got sweet mustaches.
The whole thing, right? Yeah. And so, like you said, like it's kind of my identity, right? Like I feel sorry for anybody that ever grows one in the cow horse after it because they just think they're copying me.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of my deal, and it's kind of been my deal. And it's who I was, and it's just kind of there. And then my wife come up with the logo. She got to doodling around and messing around with different things. And she kind of came up with that because it's kind of catchy and like, people can see it and it doesn't have to say Nick Dowers Performance Horses. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Right. That's a Nike check. That's Nike. Like, he doesn't have to say Nike. And that's kind of what I wanted to like, and what's crazy is like, it is very, like it's catchy, but to me at the same time, it's kind of who I am too. Cause it's not like Nick Dowers this, it's just like, yeah, if you know what it is, if you don't, you don't know.
Well, and I think that's what you want out of branding, right? Cause it's authentic, mm-hmm. right? At the end of the day. And if you're about it like before, that's kind of what creates the ability to brand. And I think that, when you do align yourself with other companies, like, hey, you're on point. But then also like, I have to say around here, the crews, they got the brand on, like embroidered on the vests and things like that, right? Like, so that's also a really important aspect of it is being about it, but really embracing it and kind of being proud of it too, right? That's
like it kind of like for me to look around and see that, I'm kind of like, oh man.
It feels weird, huh?
It feels weird.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It feels weird, but I think, when we talk about the culture and the things that I represent, like it makes me proud that they want to wear it.
Yes.
Because it's like, I feel like they're wearing it not because of what I've accomplished in the show pin, but like what I stand for as a human. I hope that's why they're wearing it. Like, I hope they're not wearing it just because like I had a win or something. And like, I've held that like really tight to the vest. Like I think that's maybe why, like, I've never, like, everybody that had a vest on is like a part of like my team. Like, I very rarely will I sell merchandise. It's like, if you've come across it, it's because like you're a part of my team. Like every year for Christmas, like we send all my veterinarians, like anybody that helps with me and my program, like they get a vest, right?
Right.
And so then they're like super proud to be a part of like what the business stand for, and they wear it. And then with that, like, you know, random fans want to buy them, and we'll sell some at times, but it's never been a marketing push to get it out there. It's just been super organic, kind of like me as an individual going into a little bit more of a spotlight has always been real organic. Like, it's kind of like Nicole calls me a hoarder.
Well, and I guess something that's kind of unique, right? Like growing up in Dyer, Nevada, it's middle of nowhere. And so the ability to kind of be around your peers, for you to kind of first show up on the scene, the fact that you don't like really want to belong.
Right.
Like you're okay with just dressing like you and being you and just kind of being your own individual. That's a huge thing right there when you first show up.
Yeah. And I think you can take that two ways. Like, some people don't want to belong because they want to be different for the attention of being different. Not me.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
That's when you.
I didn't want to conform, right? Because I wanted to be me. Like, I didn't want to sell out to that. Like, I wanted to stay who I was. Like, I wasn't trying to be different for the attention of being different. I wanted to be different because it's not who I am to be something else.
Right. Like, you showed up to the fraternity 2013 stock trailer?
Stock trailer.
What kind of stock trailer?
Just an old Featherlight.
Old Featherlight.
Old Featherlight with a little tack room on the side. And we rolled in there with that horse and another horse just to ride around.
And it's like, you don't feel like I don't belong. You're just different. Right.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's the authenticity, right? Like,
yeah.
And that mindset. And I think that's really, I think it's important that people hear that, because trying to find like your true kind of self, like what you're doing, like then it doesn't create those feelings and that awkwardness.
Well,
right?
And I feel like it's this way as a horse trainer or in life or whatever. Like, if I'm trying to fit like what I bring to the table in their mold or whatever that is, like in that mold, like I can only be, like, it limits me.
Yeah.
But if I can be myself in that world, like then the only limiting factor is like what I personally can do. Like, I never wanted to be limited by somebody else's teachings. Like, so like, that's what's so awesome about Brian and Joe too, is like, I remember Brian told me, he's like, yeah, get this stuff figured out. And then in a few years, you can come back and help me. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, you have so much experience. Like, how could I ever help you? But like, he didn't limit me to him and what he showed me. And like, I try really hard not to do that with everybody that I help. Like, you're going to take what I show you and probably make it better, because like, you bring different skill sets to the table. And that's what all I did when I went to started showing and stuff like that. Like, I didn't want to limit myself to what's the standard. Like, I created my own lane, so to speak, in a way, because like, that's where I can live out my best life. Right. I don't want to get in here and get stuck in traffic. Like, I want to go.
Yeah. I heard the term, like, if your life kind of feels like a movie or a play, like it's kind of weird probably looking back at it or even put it in those perspectives. But it's like, I did tell myself that when I was younger, like first starting X Factor, I was like, because it's a real mess and it doesn't look good at the beginning.
Yep.
You're like, man, if I can go from here to something really cool, like a vision, like that's what I had to kind of tell myself. And I just kind of always like looked at like, well, at the beginning of those movies or something, like they start at the kind of at the bottom, but then they like kind of create their own reality, right? Like create whatever their vision. And I was like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, that's worth like kind of hit a home run over. You know what I mean? I'll strike out for one of those. Like
Yeah.
that's what I was kind of the way I looked at it. And I don't know.
Yeah. And I think it goes a lot with like the people, you know, my parents, my family, my wife, my kids. Like it's like I was naive to the fact, because like I said, I didn't do any of the things that I did from branding to any of that. Like I didn't do it to be different. Like I just did it because it's who I was.
Right.
And I didn't even realize for the longest time that anything I did was like different or special, and I still don't think that, but like, you know, you get some people here for different things or different promotional things, and they're just like, oh my God, this is so not normal.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, it's just how I live.
Right.
So it's like, it's not an act. It's like it's just how I live. And it blows me away when people will say like, this is not normal. Like, just like your lifestyle, your work ethic, like how you treat your employees. Like, it's just not normal, but it is to me.
Well, it's like, it's wholesome, it's authentic, it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's no desperation feel to it. Like it's just like, hey, we love what we're doing.
Yep.
And we're working as hard as possible towards it. And I think it sounds so easy.
It sounds so easy.
But boy,
exactly.
It takes so long, but and you look back at it like it's like, oh yeah, well, easy. But probably at those times you didn't know it at all, right?
Right.
But that's just part of it. I guess that's what.
Yep.
But I think that's why being real clear with the purpose, with the vision, the why not me mentality. If you're kind of pursuing those things,
Yep.
I think it keeps your intentions really clear. It keeps it where it does have a chance to kind of change it up or be different or kind of be in your own lane, if you will.
Yeah. And like, I owe a lot to that, to like my dad, and like, he's a visionary. Like,
yeah,
he's very much a visionary of like what could be accomplished. So like, you know, just one example of that would be like laying out my training facility now. You know, like it started with a portable round pin in a feedlot pen up there. And we would literally have the round pin there, and I would have my horses turn loose in a bunch in the feedlot pen. We'd catch them and just tie them around the round pin and just start riding.
Yeah.
Like it started out with that. But growing up on the ranch, to your point, like I knew how to weld, like I knew how to build things. So then once I saved up enough money, like I bought the materials, we have the infrastructure in place to like, we have the cement mixers and stuff like that. So then it's just elbow grease and build it.
Yeah.
You build it. But my point to the visionary deal is like, I remember when we were like, we'd get a little notepad and we'd doodle out like, you know, like I remember him saying like, if you could have like your perfect layout, like what would it look like? And we'd draw it on paper and then we would tweak it and stuff. And so like I had the vision for what I wanted this place to be right from the beginning. And I tell people that too, that are building anything or whether it's a business or whatever, like I knew exactly how this was going to look when I started, and I, you know, saved this ground for this. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, but like I had no idea that, but we could walk around right now and I could tell you which horses paid for which things. Like Time for the Diamond, he paid for the building.
Yeah.
Smooth Bellingraph, he won over 100,000. He paid for the concrete to put it up. I sold a 3-year-old one time, a 3-year-old, he paid for the stall bar. Like I can just go through and tell you, and it's like you don't know how you're gonna accomplish the vision, but like where there's a will, there's a way, right? And like I can literally show you what horses and tell you what horses paid for everything that's here.
Yeah, and it's important probably that it happens through work and building, because then you can kind of, you might have messed it up if you'd have had all of it at once, right? You might have messed up the design and not being able to see things. But I think that's with like life too. Like you gotta know that. Yeah.
And I think too, like how worthless would I be if you know, if my dad would have paid for it and built all this and like I wouldn't have had to earn it? Yeah. Would I be if I wouldn't have had to earn this place and like learn how to lead and do things, you think I'd be the last one in the arena every night, like you said?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Well, and
Doubt it.
would you say your first job was like you had to lead?
Yeah.
Right. Like that's
Very early.
and to understand like, hey, I had to go through this to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just knowing like making the most out of those first opportunities, even if it is a job that's picking up rocks.
Yep.
Right. You know, like, hey, we got to get it done. This is why. Then we got to do the next thing.
Yeah.
And you just start and build.
Yeah. And the thing is too, like when you're 8, 9 years old or in high school and all your friends are goofing off and you're working, like you don't understand it. But man, I understand the lessons now, and I am so thankful.
Yeah.
So thankful. Like it wasn't always easy, but I am so thankful now.
Yeah. So you talked about this vision of like, you could see it exactly how you wanted to do it. What about the other side of that? Do you consider like, hey, maybe I am not thinking big enough? It's like, because you know what I mean? Like you definitely don't want to be thinking the other way.
Right.
So how do you find the line there? Like, how do you try to, because if you got vision and your dad's like, so how do you continue to grow that? Like the vision for that? Like, what is that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like where I'm at right now is right where God has me to be. And I don't know that it's really gonna change a lot. We're trying to raise our family and everything, but yeah, I don't know.
I think that's if you work the process, the next thing pops up, right?
Yep.
But
well, that's just it. Like I never, like, when I say I don't know, like I never had dreams to be a full-time trainer. Like if you'd asked me, even after my first show horse, like, hey, are you going to train horses for a living? I'm like, no, I'm going to cowboy and I'm going to have some nice horses, but I'm not going to be a horse trainer.
Show on the weekends. And
I'm
the big
sure.
ones.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. But God had bigger plans. So we'll see. Right.
Yeah. And you just weren't willing to limit yourself. You know what I mean? Like you were open-minded enough and
100%. Yeah. Why not me?
Yeah.
Why not you? Like, why not?
Right.
Yep.
Celebrity questions? We got any celebrity questions over here, Sarah?
What is one new thing that you have learned this week?
Oh yeah. Most important lesson from Cowboy Week this week? Like biggest thing you've learned from Cowboy Week? Takeaway.
Yep. I would say, like, I mean, I learned a few little techniques, but like something that Joe said that like really hit home. He was talking about a colt that was troubled, and then he did something, and he said he's like he remembers what he feels like when that happened, and it was that was maybe the first time that it really like got into me to where it was like he wasn't talking about what it felt like on the halter, what it felt like, physically. Like he's talking about like the inside of that horse,
his
like
instincts.
like
yes,
that feeling in his soul, like felt good to that horse, and like that hit home, and like that can get a little deep and sound a little kooky, but like with Quade's horse that was really troubled. Like I've had horses like that, I mean, that horse could real easily like be a detriment to society, like dangerous. And so you could see it like when I was working with him, like just simple little things like getting that horse to just take a step and not be freaked out by the saddle and just explode and kick the stirrup off was like huge to how that horse felt inside. And so like that was my biggest takeaway, is like the importance of that. Like, how does that horse feel? And like that horse was really bothered and really scared. And that's all it was. Like that horse didn't feel good within himself. And so to help that horse through that, and we're going to put a little ride on him here today, like that was cool. That was awesome. Really cool.
Well, and I guess the other thing we just as well say this, like with Cowboy Week, that was kind of something that, you documented the whole process, all of the conversations this week, everything. Definitely going to have like, it's hours and hours of content. I know you're releasing it or by the time this is out, it's probably will be released, but it's going to be over 12 hours of content, the first kind of an initial launch of your website. So someone can buy a membership or a package to watch all of these videos, really experience it. And you start horses from the very beginning to putting first rides on them, to working in the arena. There's something for everyone that is interested in being a horseman, right? And you guys literally covered every aspect in the
so much.
Yeah. So what you got to experience this week is now, something that people can get kind of that fly on the wall experience too.
Right.
So where would we find that at?
Well, you can get all that information on my website and it'll lead you right to it. But
nickdowers.com.
Sorry.
Yep.
nickdowers.com. It's all on there, and like on the socials and stuff, they're all like Nick Dowers too.
We'll have the link too on the podcast. So.
Perfect. But like when that just got me thinking, like along the Cowboy Week lines too, like what's like to get me, and Nicole can attest to this, to get me to like put myself out there to do this was like I needed a shove. And like Nicole believed in this enough, like, cause she was here last year. She's like, we got to do this. And I'm like, yeah, but I mean, that's a little too much like out there for me. Right. Like, cause I just kind of, I am kind of a private person in a lot of ways. But then I got to thinking like, the atmosphere, the camaraderie, just the culture that is here and created for Cowboy Week. Like that's going to be really cool for people to get a chance to be a part of that. Right?
Yeah. And you talked about the 15 or so people that are here and how they impact and inspire. So hopefully that's kind of the same effect that this will have, is like a positive impact with anyone with any walk of life, as far as like being a horseman goes. They can get stuff out of it, take horsemanship to hopefully another step, or get another perspective, and really kind of, I think that just putting that good out there, like, or that opportunity for someone that might not get exposure to you or something like this. Like, I think it's a huge win.
And that's exactly why we're doing it. Cause like I told this to my friends, like I had to tell, and it was hard. Like I had to tell really, really good friends and people that I really wanted to be here that they couldn't come, because I just had to come up with a way that I could, if it gets too big, like it's just too big. And so like literally what it come down to is like the people that worked for me in the past, they had the first kind of right of refusal. And then the people that have been to the most Cowboy Weeks, and like, that's the core, right? Like that's the nucleus. And like I said, I would want to have, like, it would be awesome to let so many people be a part of this, but you just can't. Like logistically, you just can't. That's where this deal is really cool, because it gives people a glimpse into the culture, into the, like just selfless way to look at life and training, and just to be a better you, and all the stuff that I'm striving for. Like, it just gives people a chance to kind of see that.
Right. Well, I say we wrap it up.
Sounds good.
Go grab us some breakfast and